Hello, I'm Randy Byrne, Executive Director of Baseball PEI, and in this short video we are going to review the ArmSmart pitch count rules for Baseball PEI and Baseball Atlantic in 2021. These rules will govern the pitcher in all exhibition, regular season, tournament, and provincial championship or provincial elimination games here in Prince Edward Island, and as well in all Baseball Atlantic play. So first, any player on a team is eligible to pitch, and there are no restrictions to the number of pitchers a head coach may use in a game. So, if you have 12 players, you can pitch all 12 players in one game. The pitchers shall be permitted to have 2 appearances in the same calendar day. If a pitcher requires a rest following their first appearance, they cannot return in the same calendar day. So, if you're in a tournament or a doubleheader, as long as a pitcher does not exceed their first threshold in the first game, they can pitch in a second day. So for example, at 11U, if a pitcher throws fewer than 25 pitches in the first game, they can pitch in the second game. But if they throw more than 25 pitches in the first game, which is that first one-day threshold, then they are not permitted to pitch in the second game that day. If a pitcher meets the requirements to pitch on consecutive days and the pitcher does not go over the first daily threshold during Game 1, they're permitted to have a second appearance the same calendar day, as discussed in the previous slide. Pitchers will not be permitted to exceed the maximum daily allowable number of pitches in any 2-day period. So that's a little bit of a change from the old pitch count rules. So for example, in 11U, it used to be that if a pitcher threw 25 pitches on a Friday, then they could throw the 75 pitches on a Saturday, as 75 was the maximum number of pitches that could be thrown in one day. Under these new rules, if a pitcher at 11U throws 25 pitches on a Friday, then they can only throw a maximum of 50 pitches on a Saturday because they cannot exceed the number 75 or the maximum daily allowable pitch count over a 2-day period. So that example is highlighted here a little more. If an 11U throws 20 pitches on day 1, they can only throw a maximum of 55 pitches. And the example of 15U pitcher and 22U pitcher. Now, if an 11U pitcher throws 20 pitches on day 1 and then 55 pitches on day 2, that pitcher would require 2 days rest and not 4 days rest. Now, this is a question that we had last year. The rest is based on the number of pitches thrown on that second day, which would be at 11U 55, which requires 2 days rest. Some people thought because a pitcher threw 75 pitches over 2 days, then they require 4 days rest. But it's for the purposes of calculating rest, we're only worried about the maximum number of pitches that pitcher has thrown in a day on the Saturday, which is 55. Now, although this doesn't happen very often anymore, if weather comes and a team is forced to play in 3 games in one day, no matter how many pitches a pitcher throws in the first 2 games of a day, they are not permitted to pitch in a third game in the same calendar day. So, a pitcher cannot pitch 3 consecutive days unless a pitcher's first 2 days combined does not exceed that first threshold. So for 11U, it's 25, 13U, 30, 15U or 16U girls is 35, 18U is 40, and 22U, which used to be junior, is 45. If they throw that more pitches than that over 2 days, 2 consecutive days, they cannot pitch in a third day. Now, a pitcher's combined 3-day pitch count cannot exceed, and at 11U it's 105, 13U is 120, 15U or 16U girls is 135, 18U is 150, and 22U is 165. So if you're in a tournament on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you have to make sure that your pitcher doesn't exceed the maximum number of pitches permitted over a 3-day period. So if you're in a tournament, for example, at 11U, let's say you throw your pitcher 25 pitches on a Friday, and you do not pitch them on a Saturday. On Sunday, they could throw a maximum of 75 because they don't exceed 105 number. At 13U, let's say on a Friday, your pitcher throws 30 pitches. That pitcher is permitted to throw 80 or pitches on a Sunday. However, where it gets a little more confusing perhaps is, let's say at 13U the pitcher throws 40 pitches on a Friday. Well, then on a Sunday, the maximum number of pitches they could throw is 80. Okay, so when you throw more than 1 day threshold on a Friday, then it changes how many pitches are permitted on a Sunday. So that's something to keep in mind if you're planning on your pitching staff and how many pitches everybody's going to throw during a 3-day tournament. So here's the grid for how many pitches are permitted and how much rest at 11U, 13U, 15U or 16U girls, 18U, and 22U. So the maximum daily allowed 11U is 75, 13U is 85, 15U is 95, 18U is 105, and 22U is 115. And of course, within that, there's rest thresholds. And usually they go by every 15 pitches until you get between 3 and 4 days rest. And then that changes a little bit. So we're talking about a provincial championship or an elimination, some kind of official tournament here. And the next rule I'll bring your attention to is the official scorekeeper will calculate the total pitches thrown for that calendar day and determine the required rest starting the next calendar day. And athletes must not exceed the maximum pitch count total for that day. So obviously if you're at 11U, a pitcher cannot exceed 75 pitches in a day. And the official scorekeeper, the official pitch counter tournaments, they will have the final say. So if there's discrepancy between the numbers the team and the official pitch counter has, the official pitch counter will have the final say. So once a player assumes the position of pitcher, they cannot catch for the remainder of the day. They cannot take the position of catcher. Now, we're asked a couple of questions on this rule. One is, if a player is in the position of catcher, can they pitch afterwards? And the answer is yes. But if they pitch, they cannot catch afterwards. The second question we're often asked is it just for the game or the day? And the answer is the day. So if somebody pitches, they cannot catch for the rest of the day, whether there's 1, 2, or more games during that day. And the reasoning behind this is from Baseball Canada is that when you're catching, you're throwing almost on every pitch back to the pitcher. Also, when somebody's stealing a base or there's an overthrow, you have to do a quick violent throw, and after pitching that can be very detrimental to your arm. Pitchers will be permitted to finish the batter if his or her maximum pitch count has been reached for the calendar day. So for example, in 15U, if a pitcher has hit 95 pitches in a day and they're in the middle of an at-bat, they can finish that at-bat and they're still eligible to pitch. Now, this rule applies for other thresholds. So, when a pitcher reaches the maximum number of pitches allowed for a threshold, he or she can complete the at-bat without the penalty on days of rest, as long as he or she does not pitch to another batter. In this situation, the number of pitches corresponding to the threshold reached will be indicated on the pitching log. The coach or manager needs to acknowledge this to the umpire at this moment prior to the next pitch. The umpire will then notify the scorekeeper. So, for example, if you are reaching, let's say in 18U, you're reaching 40 pitches, and you finish a batter, you're at 38, and you start the next batter at 39. Before that 40th pitch is thrown, the coach will call times and notify the umpire that this is the last at-bat that the pitcher will take part in. This is the last batter the pitcher will face. And then the umpire will either convey this message to the other team and the official pitch counter, or ask you as a coach to convey it to the other team and or the pitch counter. And if this is done, even if during the course of the at-bat there's more than 40 pitches thrown, at the end of the game, the pitcher will be only credited with throwing 40 pitches, not 42 or 43 if 2 or 3 extra pitches are thrown. But it's very important that a coach lets the umpire and or the other team know prior to that 40th pitch being thrown. And if they don't, and then they come back later and say, listen, I meant to take him out at 40, it doesn't matter. You will not be credited with 40, you'll be credited with 42 or 43 or whatever the number that is thrown. So make sure, coaches, that you let the umpire and or the other teams and the pitch counter know prior to that 40th pitch. And of course, when I talk about 40 pitches, I'm referring to 18U. At other age categories, that number is different. Only pitches actually thrown will be included in pitch count totals. So the reason this is stated in here is it used to be to intentionally walk somebody. A pitcher had to throw 4 pitches. Now, they weren't over the plate, they were out to the side, but those pitches counted towards pitch count totals. Now, with automatic intentional walks, even though a coach or a manager signals to the umpire that there will be an intentional walk and the pitcher doesn't throw the pitches, the pitcher is not credited with 4 pitches thrown. The pitcher is not penalized for throwing pitches because he or she did not throw those pitches. So even though you intentionally walk a batter, it won't affect the pitcher's pitch count. Now, if a coach decides to do this during the middle of an at-bat, so for example, let's say there's a count of 2 balls and no strikes, and the team signals, well, we're just going to intentionally put this batter on instead of throwing more pitches. The pitcher will still be credited with throwing the 2 pitches that they threw before the intentional walk was declared by the coach. So again, the rule of thumb, if a pitcher throws any pitches, they will be counted. And required rest shall be defined in days starting at 12:01 a.m. and ending at 11:59 p.m. the next calendar day. For regular season exhibition games, this is usually not much of an issue. When you get into tournaments, especially late games postponed, weather, light failures, etc., this can sometimes play an issue. If a game continues past 12:01 a.m., those pitches are counted as if pitched prior to midnight. If a game is suspended, when it resumes, it will be defined as a different day. So, for example, let's say either due to weather or light malfunction, a game starts, let's say at 10:30 in the evening, and a pitcher is pitching. Even though the game may go past 12:01 a.m., when the pitch count is done, if the game starts on a Friday and ends on a Saturday, the pitches will be counted if pitched on the Friday. Now, if the game is suspended and it starts, let's say, on Friday and it's suspended and picked up on Saturday, the pitches count as thrown on Friday, and if you start on Saturday, it's defined as a different day for the purposes of pitch count rules. And then if a pitcher has thrown more than, let's say, a 1-day threshold, they wouldn't be eligible to pitch on a Saturday. A pitcher who is removed from the mound during a game shall not be permitted to pitch in the same game, even if the pitcher is retained in the game at another position. The reason this rule is in here is in the official rules of baseball, so major league or senior or intermediate. Unless there's a special rule, teams are permitted to have a pitcher in the game, take the pitcher out but put them in a different position on the field, not totally take them out the game, just switch positions, and then later in the game put them back in to pitch. But with the pitch count rules, that's not permitted. Once a pitcher comes out of the game as the position of pitcher, they cannot in the same game go back to pitching. Now, any violation of any part of the pitch count rule, and the result is the manager or the head coach is ejected from the current game and receives an additional 1-game suspension. This comes down from Baseball Canada, and it's automatic. Even if it's a mistake, coaches have to know if you break the pitch count rule and it's discovered during the game or even after the game, it's going to be an automatic ejection and an automatic 1-game suspension. Now, this is a little bit of a different scenario, but it's possible. So if you have an ambidextrous pitcher, somebody who can throw with their right and left arms, even if that pitcher throws some with his or her left arm and some with his or her right arm, the total number of pitches thrown by the ambidextrous pitcher are counted to calculate pitch count regardless of which arm or combination thereof is thrown. So if a pitcher throws 20 pitches with his or her right arm and then let's say 15 pitches with his or her left arm, that's going to count as 35 pitches total thrown during the day. So you don't have a special pitch count for the right arm and a special pitch count for the left arm. So this next rule applies more so for tournaments. It's a little different for regular season or exhibition play, but when a game is stopped by inclement weather or for any other reason than the mercy rule, that specific game has to resume at the point of stoppage. If pitcher A is the starting pitcher of the game and has a pitch count below the first threshold, pitcher A can then be used as a pitcher again for that particular game. But considering he or she will be carrying the number of pitches thrown when the game stopped, this applies for a game that is resumed on the same day or the next day. So the example here below, if pitcher A threw 30 pitches at the 15U Nationals, he will then be allowed to throw a maximum of 65 pitches when the game resumes. If pitcher A had thrown 36 pitches when the rain started, he or she would not be eligible to pitch if the game is rescheduled for the next day, as he or she needs his or her full day of rest. If the game is resumed during the same day, he or she can then come back as a pitcher while carrying his or her pitches. So basically, if a game is suspended and picked up during the same day, if the pitcher wasn't removed prior to the game being suspended, they can come back in and continue to pitch so long as they're not past the maximum threshold, of course. However, if a game is suspended and it's restarted the next day, if the pitcher threw, say, 36 pitches at the 15U level, they're not eligible to pitch the next day because they need a one-day rest as per the pitch count rules and that threshold. So here's another question. What if I have a 13U age pitcher pitching at 15U? Well, actually, in all baseball PEI leagues, only affiliate players only in the same age category as the team they're playing at can pitch. So if an affiliate's called up to play 13U AAA, for example, from 11U, the 11U pitcher cannot pitch. However, when we talk about national championships, there's no such rule. So if a team goes away, let's say, to the Canada Cup, and a 15U pitcher is on that team and they want to pitch, that's permitted. However, they will follow 15U pitch count. Even if it's a 17U tournament, that 15U pitcher will follow the 15U pitch count. If it was a 22U tournament, the 15U, or sorry, let's say a 17U or 18U player was playing, that 18U player would follow the 18U pitch count. And to be clear, the manager or head coach of a team may make a second visit to the mound while the same batter is in an at-bat in order to remove the pitcher. So a head coach can come out and talk to a pitcher and then go in, and the pitcher, let's say, could throw one more pitch. The coach can come back out to the mound, and as it's the second visit, they would have to remove the pitcher from the game. Excuse me. Finally, so this is for tournaments, but it's important for all people to know involved in the tournaments. When the use of a pitcher who is ineligible or about to become ineligible is evident, scorekeepers or other officials must notify the manager or head coach of the offending team so that an opportunity for assignment correction may be immediately effected. In the event that the manager or head coach deliberately overpitches his or her pitcher, the result is the manager or head coach is ejected from the current game and receives an additional one-game suspension. So if you're a pitch counter at a tournament and you notice that a pitcher is about to go over the pitch count threshold that they're permitted during that day, you have an obligation to make sure you let the team's coach know about that and any other officials. If you notice an issue right away, you have to deal with it right away. Although coaches have to be cognizant of pitch count rules, and if they break the rules even by accident, they'll still be punished. However, if we can prevent an issue like that, we must try to prevent an issue like that. So finally, baseball PEI, the Arm Smart, the actual pitch count rules, which are found in this video. You can find a paper copy of these in the baseball PEI website in the policy and procedures section, or if you go to this link, it'll come up automatically. Now we also have an Arm Smart pitch count fact sheet, and that can be found in the download section of the Baseball PEI website or at this link. And the FAQ sheet, I think is really good. It answers pretty well any question that you would have. And if these documents, the FAQ sheet and the pitch count rules, you still have a question after reading them, you can email me at baseball@sportpei.pe.ca. So this video was about 21 minutes long. I hope it was useful. I hope you have a great summer and you have no issues with the pitch count rule. Thank you.